Hi, this is Tim with the Watchbox, on assignment with your Opus Star magazine at SIHH 2019. We are with Laurent Ferrier, first something old, the GPHG Best Men's Watch Laureate Montre Ecole. This is the annual calendar, and you can see in the stainless steel case, this is the old dial. You can see there is a satin finish and stepped center dial, and then there's a declining incline for the hour track outboard. Now I'm going to show you what changed over the winter. New this year, a series of distinct dial variations, no longer including that stepped center. Now what you see here is the blue dial that is new for 2019 with a very subtle vertical satin finish. It's almost the texture of stainless steel with the color of blue jeans, but you can see how the dial is better able to breathe without the step between the hour track and the center. It gives the impression of a larger watch on the wrist. This is a galvanic blue with a gentle satin grain top to bottom. Again, the flat plane of the dial now extended all the way out to the radial date. Now I'm going to show you another. And this, in addition to representing one of Laurent Ferrier's yellow gold cases, which are wonderfully vintage, features the opaline black dial. Now this is a combination of a rusticated, pebbly grained opaline surface. It's matte, not sunburst. And you'll also note lacquered to create an even warm glow across the dial, as well as even surfacing. It no longer features that step, and I can show you side by side the new dial and the old dial. So the new dial in black, the old dial in a sort of galvanized silver gray. And you'll note that although less complicated, the new dial truly allows the dial to breathe, expand to its edges, and even imparts a nice vintage effect as it's decisively less complex. In this case, less is more. Now I've got one more take on the new dials to show you. And that is opaline white. Now you can see the same treatment with a matte finish, no longer a step to the hour track, and a lacquer atop. The lacquer is more evident on the silver white dials than on the black because the gloss and the gleam, the implementation of the soft material allows this one to glow and radiate its surroundings just a little bit more. It's more reactive in the light, more dazzling to the eye, but this is the opaline silver white. Laurent Ferrier, this is the annual calendar Best Men's Watch winner at GPHG. You know the Galet Micro-Rotor, famed for its 3-day natural escapement caliber, but this time we have an all-new dial, and it is the dial that takes center stage today. It is a rusticated opaline, so it has a slight pebbly grain, very lightly textured. What sets it apart is that the grain is then lacquered following the application of a rusticated surface to create a uniform luster as well as a uniform surface. That's what the lacquer achieves. Now the example you see here is somewhere between white and silver. It brings out to greater effect the polished white gold indices and the signature Laurent Ferrier assegai style hands popping off the dial more than before. Now there's also a black variant that I'm going to show you that uses the same approach, and this one, again, rusticated and then lacquered. You can see the gleam of the lacquer as I move it around through the light, the bead of light shining evenly across the entire surface. You can also, to a better degree than before, discern the polished hands and indices atop the dial. Now this is such a success, Laurent Ferrier is rolling it out, both dial treatments, across the entire Micro-Rotor line. So regardless of the case shape you prefer, school watch, traditional Galet, Galet Square, you're going to be able to get both of these dials in both of these treatments. And just to emphasize the point, I have the lovely Galet Traveler. You can see the second time zone, the small seconds, the date, and of course the pusher adjusters that make this such a travel-friendly complication. But you can also see the degree of contrast rendered on the center by virtue of the new grained and lacquered approach. So this is an opaline rather than a sunburst, also known as matte. It is a slight silver tone, just as the black is more of a dark anthracite than a true jet black. So both of them combining a combination of textures, materials, and tones in one. Handsome dials now available across the entire Micro-Rotor line. Opaline black, opaline silver white. This is the Bridge 1. It is the first form case or arced case to be built by Laurent Ferrier, a timepiece inspired by Geneva, a city of bridges, and in particular the Passerelle de Lille that was frequented by Laurent Ferrier during his formative years as a child. So you have that arced bridge-like form to the case, which is 44 millimeters by 30 millimeters in stainless steel. Now what you're looking at is a timepiece with effectively a black polish on its inward bowed sides, as well as its almost optically flawless bezel. Now, I cannot say enough good things about the dial, which is Grand Faux enamel. You do get Grand Faux enamel and immaculate watchmaking in a steel case. The timepiece featuring a spherical crystal, which is to say, if you were to expand the crystal through 360 degrees, or perhaps I should say every dimension, this would arc out and expand to an enormous sphere. So it's not as though it's simply a cambered sapphire. It's also arced from side to side, in addition to being arced from end to end. It's wonderfully box section, so it does flare above the plane of the bezel, giving the watch a wonderful three-dimensional luster. And although this pre-production model is not entirely representative, the final example will be smoked at its edges, so it'll have a tint that will blur the transition from case to crystal, and that's the reason for the black polishing of the case. It will be a seamless aesthetic in its final production version. I should also mention that there's a little bit of a gradient to the numerals as they're applied. This is actually achieved by varying the thickness of the enamel on the dial face to create a little bit of a black to gray fade. Now, turning it all over, you can see a new caliber, which is sized and shaped specifically. I'm going to get super close here. This is the Laurent Ferrier LF 10701. Manual wind, 3 Hertz beat rate. The watch features a 80-hour power reserve and a Swiss lever escapement. You'll note that it features Côte de Genève, beautifully textured. You can see they are ridged with a bright side and a dark side as a true abrasive wheel Côte de Genève. Mirrored anglage, including an interior angle, holding the 4th wheel in place, and the timepiece with that level of optically smooth hand chamfer or beveling on the edge of all individual surfaces. Large mainspring barrel to ensure 80 hours of power reserve, adjusted in 6 positions. Remember, a chronometer typically is adjusted in 5, 21 joules, sized and shaped to fit the watch. And the timepiece, Laurent Ferrier's first arced case. I'm going to zoom back out for a moment. I'm going to show you the other dial option that is available. Now, this timepiece does not feature Grand Faux enamel. What it does feature is a wonderful pebbly grain, more distinct than a conventional opaline dial. This is a wonderfully rusticated, rough, almost cement-like finish with a lacquer applique over the top. You will note white gold Roman numeral 12 at the top of the dial and assegai or spear-style hands at center. The contrast level is high. Once more, you can see the details of this case, which truly deserves its spotlight solo, as well as the caliber that is new to the brand, as well as properly designed for this canister. And you get a better view of the sectioned sphere that is the crystal, a very small sliver of what would be a 3-dimensional sphere if expanded to the logical extremes. These are the 2 new watches from Laurent Ferrier. You got a little bit of a taste of what a Laurent Ferrier form watch would look like in the only watch timepiece completed with Urwerk 2 years ago. And this, the first form Laurent Ferrier in series production, again, inspired by the man's own childhood and Geneva, a city of bridges. This is the Laurent Ferrier Bridge 1 at SIHH 2019.